Thank you everyone for joining this session. We have been planning this for some time, and as you know, we are planning this as some kind of an industry sharing knowledge kind of session. So what we thought is, in the beginning, we will ask for questions, and we will get questions from you. And I'm happy to say that we got some very interesting questions. And me and Krishna Kumar, who's also called KK, will take the questions. Okay, and before I start, let me give you a short introduction to begin with for KK. KK was in analytics before the name analytics came into being. So he was a database manager in Ogilvy and Mehta, which means looking after all the databases which are involved in the direct marketing business. From there, he went on to get into bigger companies and into modeling. And as a statistician, he took like a duck to water. And now he's gone all the way up to AI. I don't know how much of the processes have changed, but a lot of technology has changed in the meantime. And KK is one of the few people who know everything, but he's kind of not as well known as he should be. Okay, so that is KK for you. KK, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Manoj. I don't know if I know everything, but we're always learning.
Anyway, I've learned most of my analytics from him. What has happened is that I used to be in advertising first, ending with Ogilvy, where I used to handle brands like Titan and Alan Sullivan. I went on to become a marketing head of Titan. And then when I got bored with that is when I got together with KK and Balu, and we started this company. And now I have a double PhD because in analytics on the business side, however, not on the modeling side, because I have spent like 12 years in the business now, learning a little bit every day. Okay, so now that those introductions are out of the way, I think we have a lot of interesting questions. Let me start with a pretty provocative one that someone has sent. Okay, he or she says, I didn't. It came without a name. Analytics, as I understand, is looking at a rear view mirror and driving the car. Your comments, please. I guess essentially what the person is saying is that you're only looking at past data. You're not really considering the future. And this is one of the key cribs that creative people have. Okay, they hate this whole thing of numbers dictating, what they should be doing. So I guess basically what they're saying is you can't really drive a car looking at a rear view mirror. You better look at the future when you are creating strategies. So what do you think, KK?
Yeah, I think that's a question that people who have this knowledge of marketing, which is coming from years of being in the factory doing stuff, they would say that, I know everything. What is the thing that data can give you? Yes, but we shall not belittle the rear view mirror, because in my opinion, most aspects of life are based on something that happens in the past and it repeats itself. Economics is one such subject where one such phenomena where things don't change very often. Of course, there are some changes, but mostly it will repeat itself. And the random component of what is happening will be a little smaller than the carryover effect from the past. So I think the rear mirror is good. It helps you take decisions, and most of the time you will be right. It will not be able to predict a COVID, that nobody would have been done. New things like would it have said people will move online payment, those things, it comes from more visionary people. But analytics is well suited to take a lot of decisions which look at the past and take decisions in the future. In fact, one of the assumptions we make in analytics is that the recent past will repeat itself in the near future. So I would not throw it out. Yeah, sure, there'll be some people who will always say I can take decisions on their own, but database decisions also have a part to play. And I think you don't find those creative people in the market today. I don't think you'll find people like David Ogilvy and all, in today's generation.
By the way, David Ogilvy was very much believed in analytics, because
yes,
without analytics, I mean, it's. But anyway,
in fact, he made a very important statement in 1957, where he said, "We prize both the creative and the analytics. Without the first, you will not know where to go. Without the second, you will not get there."
Yeah, and since a nice quote was used, like looking at the rearview mirror, what I'd like to say quote is Winston Churchill, who said that those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. So, and I have seen a lot of that happen over the last 12 years. There have been brands which have been making mistakes all year on year, and it actually becomes the part of the DNA of the brand. That is the basic reason is because you have not done a zero-based ROI of what you are really getting from the advertising or the marketing activities that you're doing. Okay, so that is really something that is extremely useful. Now, also the second thing is going forward and looking at the future. It is what happens is this statement is an all or nothing kind of statement. You either take all of the results of analytics and apply it without thought, or nothing at all. I mean, I don't want to do it at all, right? So instead, what I would suggest is you have to intelligently look at what is going to be the future and use the insights from analytics to apply. So the answer is not one or the other. It's actually a combination of both, which leads to effectiveness in advertising. Okay, so like
Nice.
they say, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. Certainly, the water will be dirty, but you have the baby, which is your data asset. You can't really throw that out. Okay. Anyway, anything else, KK, on
I
this?
hope this. No, I think that's what I'm saying. You have to have both creativity as well as analytics, and you have to look at the past. And if most businesses are not like casinos. It's not that random every day, right?
Right.
Otherwise, nobody can be able to predict anything. Some parts you can predict, some parts you can't. I believe most parts you can predict.
Okay. Okay. Now coming to the prediction part of it and the analytics, there is a question here. Okay, which is saying what are some of the key advanced analytics methodologies used to improve marketing?
Okay, so
How widely are these applied? I mean, I guess they are also saying because we have largely run this campaign in India, or we asked for questions in India, they are asking how widely applied are these applied, possibly in the Indian market.
okay.
Like to take
So
a
I
shot.
will answer this in two parts. Before we go on to the advanced techniques, we must know what is currently being done, and then we'll move on to what the newer nuances which clients are asking. So if you look at marketing analytics, it's been largely divided into three segments. The first part is measurement and improvement of marketing inputs, right? So that's where your marketing mix and your optimization comes. The whole focus is on how do I improve my marketing initiatives, whether it be pricing, distributions, media, whatever you're doing. So that's one area. The second area where marketing and analytics is used in marketing is understanding customer behavior, predicting behavior, recommendation engines, customer intent, ability to pay. All of these are in one area, which is second area of marketing analytics. The third is area where we want to improve our campaign management processes. Can I do a better? Can I reduce the cost of acquisition? Can I reduce the time in which conversions happen? Can I get more customers? Can I get my repeat customers? So campaigns around it. So largely there are three: performance measurement, customer understanding, and campaign. Now, if you're asking me what are the latest techniques or whatever the latest methodology are being used, current questions that are being used are about 4 or 5. I'm not saying that everybody has answers. Rainman seems to be thinking we seem to have some answers. But this is what I see in the questions we have got in the recent past. One, there are multiple KPIs because of digital. Can you measure all of them simultaneously? So before we were doing a measurement, we measure sales and just market share. But today we have clicks and we have people comments, and then you have all kinds of things. Many, we call them vanity matrices. So can we measure all of them simultaneously? That's one question. And today there are techniques that do that. So $1 invested in a particular channel would have multiple effects across many KPIs. Sales being the most, and there'll be other things like search engine count and things like that. Second, long-term and short-term effects. Many people are saying, I mean, this came from you actually, Manoj, because you were always asking that advertising does not just stop on the day it is delivered, right? It carries on, and memorability carries on, and these things. So today I'm
For
happy to
years
say
together,
that.
you have an effect going on. So how are you measuring that? Yeah.
Yes. So today we have techniques which measure short-term and long-term effects of the media, right? So that's the second innovation that people are asking. And third one is how does multi-touch attribution work in conjunction with market mix model? Because about 5 to 6 years back, maybe 8 years back, people came up with this multi-touch attribution. They thought this was the greatest sliced bread and said, all the sales will happen because of multi-touch. But today, I think there is a consensus saying that multi-touch attribution is a subset of market mix model. Once you have peeled off the effects of the brand and the effects of promotion, TV, etc., what is left would be digital. And within the digital, the multi-touch attribution is a great informer about what works in the place. So that's an innovation that I thought many people are asking today because they've gone through the process of market mix. They poo-pooed that, went to multi-touch attribution. Then they said, no, that's also not working. Now they're coming to a consensus saying,
because in multi-touch attribution, they're really looking at a very small subset. You're not considering a lot of environmental effects. You're not considering things that are happening to price competition. You're just merely going by some amount of information which is coming in from the path that a customer takes when they are actually buying on digital. So yes, so therefore, and also given that now personal information is no longer going to be available, market mix modeling should have been the methodology of choice because it takes into account everything. But now there is no choice. I think most marketers will move towards doing that, and we are doing some fair amount of work in this area with Facebook, as you know. Okay.
Just one more thing.
Move on to the next question because I think I have a lot a them.
Okay.
Unless you have something specific. Okay. One of them is again back to business, and I think it is a business question really. What kind of difference in business terms does marketing analytics make? I think that's you're really asking. I mean, is this whole thing? I mean, people used to ask. I mean, are you really delivering what you're delivering? From what I have seen, okay, I think it makes a huge difference, and I think the better marketing companies are using it. Okay, in what ways is it making? And I think it's very easy to see what the lift is, what the increase in sales is when it comes to one-to-one kind of communication, because you have an X number of customers on the other side. You have done some activity across all your P's, and then you used to get a certain result. What analytics and modeling can do is it can show you a lift, and we predict a lift and we also validate it in market. So it's very clear. So as opposed to an earlier campaign, how is the earlier campaign and how you use the mix? How is the new mix working and what is the lift? And given that environmental conditions have not changed too much. Okay, so as far as one-to-one communication is concerned, the lift is usually quite high, and it is certainly worth looking at. Now, where the problem really happens is when it comes to B2C. Now, B2C has so many different variables and inputs that it is kind of, even though we are saying that we are building a model, a market mix model, which takes every possible variable into account for which data is available, we after you get this lift, let's say we got 10 to 15% increase in effectiveness and growth, you could always ask the question, okay, was it because of something else that happened in the market? Well, it can be because of anything that's happened in the market, what competition did, but we are trying to capture as many effects as possible. And so therefore we are able to predict lifts. And we have often seen that people who have done analytics are actually outperforming the others, and their growth, let's say some brands I have seen where the sales have been flat, but after analytics in a year or two, they start showing a distinctively higher growth rate. That's because they are getting more efficient and they're getting more effective. Okay, let me give you an example. I mean, there is always I was also telling you earlier about how there is a black spot that develops, a kind of habit that develops among marketers, and they kind of keep repeating what they did in the past. Without analytics, it is extremely difficult to figure out what's working and what's not, because you are really looking and saying that I have 20% extra budget. Where does it go? I more or less do my old things. I have seen a big company which used to spend for one of its brands almost 50% on a very large promotion, which is a combination of free gift, a lot of advertising behind it, and it has been going on for more than 10 years. So when we actually looked at it and said, like, I mean, is this really in modeling? I was puzzled to see there was hardly any lift, and coming from a retail company, I was used to very high lifts. Okay, when it came to promotions working in the market, so I was very puzzled. We kept looking and looking, and then I finally figured that this promotion is not really working for some reasons in the market. Maybe the retailer is not passing it on to the consumer. It could be a number of reasons why it was not working, but there was no lift at all. So therefore, and this brand has been flat at about 1,000 crores for the last 3 or 4 years. So we basically told them to take that money, put it back into core advertising with new products, and that particular year they got a 200 crore increase in sales. So what I'm basically saying is that there was something that was there which they did not recognize because they were, in a sense, not doing the zero-based budgeting. So overall, I don't think there is much of an argument of whether analytics works or not. It is more a question of whether we are applying the analytics right or not. Like I often tell people that, look, a statistician cannot run a brand, okay, or only a marketing guy nowadays cannot run a brand because he doesn't have this statistical input. So it's a combination of these two, which I think will make the difference. And as many people very nicely put it, it's a combination of art and science. So certainly there is an art element to it, but there is no denying that it is working. I mean, I I don't see that at all.
Yeah, just pursuing the number part of it without understanding the business is completely useless. And in fact, one of the greatest statisticians, David Cox, said so of this. He said, statistics is a too important a subject to be left in the hands of the statistician.
Okay, so let me go on to the next question. Okay, which says, how can you convince a client or individual about the need for analytics or even data-based decisions? Okay, since I have been the guy who's been selling the most, or along with Balu, we've been selling, and we kind of meet clients across the board. Yeah, I know this is a challenge. This is a challenge. And to my experience, there are basically three types of clients that you come across, possible potential clients, because we are an external agency. I'm sure the frustration happens also for internal teams when they come across some of these people. Okay. The first are the naysayers, the guys who just don't believe, the hardcore. First, start with the assumption that all this is like a new thing, new gizmo that has come, and people are unnecessarily doing this. We should continue with what we are doing. We are growing, we are having more stores. Okay, when you have such people and they are indeed growing, it is a kind of difficult thing to kind of crack them. And I think the best thing we can do is either wait for them to retire or leave the company before going back to them.
Or their market share that nosedives.
No, that many a time everybody grows together. It's a question of how much more you are growing. Okay, because India is a growth market at the end of the day, right? So they keep growing irrespective. If you look at the US scene where we work for a number of clients, they are really, really fighting for some minor increases. Where that's why they kind of make a big effort collecting data and actually doing all this analytics, and we are very religious in the way they actually take our inputs and apply them in the market and come back the next year. Okay, which I don't see so much of it in India. It is more like, okay, you give me the, and I used to treat, in a sense, I mean, when I was in marketing, research somewhat similarly. I would just kind of absorb it, not really go back to it. Maybe it will get reflected in my strategy somewhere. Okay. So coming to the second type, the believers. Okay, there are people who really believe in it. In fact, we need to tell them that no, analytics cannot solve everything. There is no way analytics can solve what's the fan in your house. No, it cannot do that. I mean, basically they believe that analytics can crack any problem. They will come back with problems where there is no data, and then they expect analytics to do something. So but they are the believers. Okay, they do some of the best work in analytics, and we have had some clients and they have been a delight. Now, the interesting ones are the skeptics, and these are the ones we need to convince. And that is where we have figured out, and I don't mind sharing what we do. So what we do is, when we come up against a client, what we do is we go to his industry, understand in his industry, see what kind of case studies there are, and we kind of custom make a case study for him to kind of get in and very clearly show him the business benefit. Okay, so it's usually a 15-20 slide presentation which shows some basic outputs and shows him that this is the lift that he would get. Okay, so they maybe not, and then when they are in this maybe not kind of thing, and also this entire buzz around analytics, and I should also be doing something, is somewhere at the back of this person's mind. So then we tell him that even though you might not be fully convinced, the way to get convinced is, why don't you take baby steps by doing a pilot project? Okay, so the pilot project is where we actually get as much data, and they understand the difficulty in also collecting data at that point, because they usually start by telling you that I have everything. Okay, at the end of 1 month, they start saying, do I have enough data to actually do it? Well, nobody has 100% of the data, but like even if you have 80-90% of the data, we can build a good model. And so these are the people where, if the pilot works and they like the process, that's where we kind of start working with them. It becomes a deeper and deeper thing, and it takes sometimes years before they kind of become a retainer. Those are the kinds of things that happen from a. So there is no magic bullet, I'm afraid. You just have to keep banging your head against the wall, and somewhere something will crack. Okay. All right. So let me move on to the next question. I think, KK, this is just down your street. This says marketing is about getting, keeping, growing, and building advocacy. Okay. What is
Interesting.
the marketing analytics principal role in achieving these objectives for a marketer?
Okay, so it's obvious this person is from a CRM background because
No,
he's
this is
using the
Matthew
words
Anthony.
finding, getting,
He
keeping.
put his name there. Is Matthew Anthony, your old colleague?
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. It's a typical Matthew Anthony question. Yeah. So good. Yeah. So let me try to answer this. When he's talking about advocacy, what currently they are saying is, if you can get your customer to recommend you, which is then that's like huge behavioral measure of brand loyalty, and that will result in repeat sales and result in share of wallet and all the other measurable tenets of loyalty. So Matthew's question, I think he's asking is, how does analytics? What is the principal role in these things, right?
Yeah.
So yes, analytics has a role to play in each of these. For example, if you look at the Bain module, which is the NPS, Net Present Score, right? They're just saying everything has been come
Net
down to
promoter
one
score.
Net Promoter Score. Sorry,
Yeah.
just everything is just coming down to one question: will you recommend? So that is the sum and substance of all customer loyalty measured in one sentence. Now, how did they arrive at that's through analytics? They've done a principal component analysis or equivalent and come to say,
they get that survey which kind of rates them 9 or 10, and say
exactly,
that these are the people who are your advocates,
exactly.
in that sense. And I guess analytics can help identify what these people and why these people are
Who
your
are these people who are the net promoters? What drives them? And so on. So yes, it has a very principal role. And if you can move advocacy, then you're moving brand loyalty.
Yeah, and of course, about getting and growing, it's got a big role to play,
Yeah.
because what you're really doing is you're making the marketing more efficient, which means that you are really moving your resources from the less efficient to the more efficient. Okay, maybe digital is working much better for you, but you're spending money in OOH, so you put the money there. You kind of study your promotions and see which one is working. So there is a certain something to be gained from efficiency building. Okay, but there is also something, but sometimes analytics comes through, and you start believing that the strategy, even your target audience, for example, is something that you need to look at. Okay, in which case I have looked at it. There was a brand which was looking at the target audience as either mothers or kids. What I found is, when they marketed it to kids, it was 3 times as effective, and they were spending actually more money on mothers than they were on kids. So if you were to change your creative, you change your entire strategy to start looking at kids. Okay, even promotions to them, going to their schools, whatever it is. Okay, that would have been much more effective. So here, what is happening is, analytics has clearly pointed a way to make your whole marketing strategy more effective, in the sense that now it is not only, we are no longer playing only the efficiency game, but this is a higher risk game of changing your strategy. And the change strategy could give you it's more risky, obviously. It is higher risks and higher rewards, because you are moving away from what you were doing earlier. So a number of times we have come across what we need to we kind of need to look at. Okay, so yeah, so there is a role, okay, obviously, in growing, even in keeping, right? Retention
Yeah.
models you can build and see. So I don't think there is a single thing about principal role. I think it is in parts. I think it's a little bit of improvement everywhere, and sometimes it's an overall kind of change in strategy that it might
Yeah.
allow you to take, even internally, to make that happen. Okay.
Manoj, there's another important aspect. Here is where you said, analytics is not a panacea for everything. This is a good case because advocacy will happen only if your product and your service, etc., are exceptionally good. Analytics will only tell you, so and so is not happy. These are the reasons. But the core concept of advocacy is you have to get the product and the
Yeah, at least analytics will tell you those who are unhappy, why are they unhappy?
Why
So
are they
you
unhappy?
can reduce it. And those who are happy, what is it that is driving their score? So you can do more of. I mean, basically that's it, right? You could kind of just merely improve the way you are doing this stuff. Okay, let me move on to a question which is kind of current, and a lot of clients have actually asked me this. During COVID time, we understand consumer behavior has changed, and actually even the markets have changed because you couldn't shop in a particular way that you were doing earlier. So COVID has changed a lot. So how relevant is MMM to bring this change through data available for a short period? Because COVID wasn't there, let's say 5 years ago. So you can't really be working with even 3-year data. Now, of course, COVID has been around with us for like 2 years now, or 2+ years. So now COVID, we are learning the effects of COVID on different aspects. But how do you see market mix modeling capturing this COVID effect?
Yeah. On a lighter note, COVID has affected market mix modeling also. Yeah, it does. I'll tell you, a lot of our clients, especially.
You mean the clients have disappeared?
Yeah. Yeah. So what has happened is a lot of clients are asking us, can you measure the impact of COVID on our business? So there was a very nice case study that we did about a year just after the COVID happened is for a client in Spain, and it's one of my very favorite case studies for COVID. So what did we do? We measured the impact of COVID impact on sales, because what happens? This person is selling a beverage, alcoholic beverage, and then people had to stop going to the bars and the whatever what you call the in-premise sales.
In-premise, yeah.
In-premise sales went down. But what was happening is people moved to the online and home orders started happening. So while their business for short term was lost in the early stages, very quickly they adopted the online model, and these alcoholic beverages were being sent home. I mean, assuming that there was movement along the essential services that along with that they pushed it. The other interesting thing I found out is when they are sitting at home, what kind of events were they doing? They were watching obviously TV, Netflix, and all of these things. So around the time there was a football match or a major, musical thing, the sales of these went up. So it was very interesting to see how home behavior alcoholic consumption was centered around events. So we had about 20, 30 events which they plucked out of their database and gave it to us. And we were able to find out how alcohol and the consumption of alcohol at home and the event had sales. So these were all innovative ideas that this client had implemented.
So what you're basically telling us is that people were drinking more during COVID.
Yeah, at least the same. For a small, no, they were stocking. That's another important thing. When they knew that, with the uncertainty, people were stocking all the essentials.
Yeah, no, but I think the question is also a little technical. How in modeling are you dealing with this COVID? Suddenly the data is not available for such a long period, and you suddenly have this COVID happening. Won't it completely disturb your model and
No,
make the whole thing difficult to figure out the impact of different variables?
See, this was not a predicting event. This was after the COVID had already happened. So what we captured the impacts were with dummies. So we have a concept called the dummy variable. And here we know what exactly the dummy was. Sometimes the dummies we don't know, unnamed dummies.
So in a sense, you can work out scenarios of what will happen if, let's say, in India, the fourth wave comes, and if there is no fourth wave. So you will make different predictions for these two
scenarios. Should a fourth wave happen, this is how it will move. If nothing happens, this is how your business will go on. So that is an interesting thing, and it's a lot of clients are asking for that, right?
Yeah, I guess it is important to work it out, and
the impact on market mix model is now we have two sales, online sales and offline sales, right? Because people move from one to the other.
Yeah.
So that's why I said COVID has an impact in market mix model also.
And there's also a difference in viewerships that has happened.
Correct. OTT.
So I don't know if there is a correlation with sales there as well for.
Yeah. OTT is the other thing, from traditional TV to OTT. So all of these are. So it's an interesting thing. And if some clients who are watching this want to do this kind of study, they are happy to help them.
Okay. Okay. Going on to the next question. I think this is something a little more basic, but how are you basically able to work out the ROI at a media level? Okay. At a sub media level is, I think, what he's asking, when all of them are running concurrently. For example, digital, OH, print, TV is running, but within digital also there is Facebook, Google. Within TV channels there is sports versus this, that. So how are you able to do that is a question. So I think, is
That
there any
doesn't seem like
different
a basic
methodologies
question.
that you use to get this out?
Yes, it doesn't seem like a basic question. It's a very interesting question because that is what real life is. Things happen concurrently. And what analytics, at least the techniques that we use, are able to peel off things and measure when they happen concurrently, right? So, if I don't get into deep into mathematical waters, but very broadly, I will tell you, if I have from a technical perspective, we use something called different calculus, partial differentiation, right? What does partial differentiation do? It measures the rate of change when many things are moving. There are too many moving parts happening simultaneously. In such a situation, your go-to technique will be your partial derivative, right? Partial derivative measures the rate of change of one when others are kept constant at some place, right? So regression is nothing but a discrete method, a discrete way of representing differential equations, or rather partial differential equations. And regression is able to peel out this, even though they are happening simultaneously. It's the ability to do it. That is one of the Newtonian discoveries, because before Newton, people didn't know how to measure. All mathematics was statics, like geometry, measuring cones and things like that. Newton brought in the motion, and then he started measuring movement. And one of the things he confronted was what he said: concurrent things happening. How do I measure? So we just borrow from Newton. We don't discover anything, and the partial derivative
Yeah,
is
yeah, you
able to.
certainly made the whole thing sound fairly advanced. No,
You said it's a
it's a
basic
basic.
question. I said
It is,
no.
it is the
Whoever asked this
basics of the
question is an
business.
interesting question.
Yeah, it's a but I think the key thing is, at one time, even when I joined the business, I remember that we were only doing it at one level. Okay,
Ah,
how much is driven by TV, how much is driven by distribution, print, and so on. But it
correct.
was not, we were not drilling it down and saying at the channel
Yeah,
level what you were doing.
correct.
So how has that come about? And
So
it's
now what happens because
still
of these incessant questions of people asking, concurrently, can you do it? Can you do it? And I have lots of channels within digital, okay, or I have lots of TV channels within TV. We have come up with a method which is able to do this very well. And by not giving away too much, what I'm doing is the methodology that we seek to do is what kind of impacts would have created the sales in exactly the same sequence that it has occurred and in the same magnitude. So we compute a probability of that and try different combinations of impacts. And the one that has the highest probability to have created the existing sales is the one is the winner, and we go with that. It's a if I don't get into too much complexity, conceptually that's what we do. How probable would these impacts have created the sales that you are currently observing? So
with
if
a
you
high
maximize
probability.
that, then you are hopefully
Okay.
there.
Yeah. So, following up with that is another slightly technical question. I think obviously sent by an analyst. Uh, so he's saying, when do you use Bayesian versus other regression methods? When do you use Bayesian?
Okay, this is a good one. This is a good one. Yes. Yeah, you obviously he's been told by his bosses or whoever, everybody has to use Bayesian and such. Yeah. So the reasons why
Yeah,
you
Bayesian
use,
has become a kind of fashion nowadays in
yeah, but
analytics.
there are certain reasons why it has become fashionable. Okay, the first reason is it is able to infuse in the expert's knowledge into the equation. Regression, when you do a regression type of model or non-Bayesian method, you solely depend on the sample data that you've got. Okay, and that sample data may not be representative of the entire history of your business. It may be an odd sample, right? So you cannot take decisions based on that. So if you want to infuse a knowledge this Bayesian method allows you to input the expert's opinion inside. That's first. Second, it is used when you have no or very little data. I mean, there is big data problems, but we have Bayesian can solve the small data problems. You have 5 pieces of information. You can't go to regression, right? It will have degrees of freedom estimation methods there. So Bayesian is extremely good when the data sets are small. In fact, it is the go-to method. There is no other method, at least in my book. Third is you can automate Bayesian very well. If you want to automate it and run automated things tomorrow, scenario planners, etc., Bayesian lens itself, because there is no estimating and checking for significance tests and all of that is not there. It will run through probability and it will deliver certain things to you. So yes, Bayesian. The other reason why we use Bayesian, at least in Rainman, is because of too many variables not coming in the market. Right? That's the most important reason why we move to Bayesian. You have 60, 70 inputs and you have only 30, 40 pieces of information. How do you bring it all in?
You mean 30, 40 lines of information?
Lines of information, rows of information.
Yeah.
And how do you, and we all know that if you do it on a one-to-one basis, all of them work. But if you try test them one by one, they are getting significant. But how do they all bring in? Because one kicks out the other. So when you have large data sets, large
number of variables,
then you need Bayesian. Yeah. So this is a good question. Yeah.
Okay. I think we are more or less running out of time. I don't think we can bore people for too long. But I think I come to my favorite question. He says, how do I get a job at Rainman?
Okay, he has to apply.
Good question. Excellent question.
We have to know you. Yeah. Jokes aside, yes. I think at Rainman, as the leader in the analytics department, I like people who are very passionate about business, curious about numbers and techniques, and the creativity to bring them together. There is a mathematics, there's partial derivation, all kinds of things, and then the marketers have problems on one side. How well you bring it together, that is the art part of it. I like people who are passionate, who obviously you need to know lot of statistics of some advanced level. If you have to be Rainman, definitely you got to know some very advanced techniques. So that is something that you have to have. Thirdly, you need to program. You need to have either a R or a Python or Excel skill somewhere, but to SAS, for example, some kind of programming, because we don't solve our equations with pen and paper. That's for sure. So you need to have that. Finally, I like people who have a sense of humor, enjoy their job and not, too much, have things beyond their life, play a sport or a musical instrument. I like people who have fun lovers. So
people who have good work-life balance.
Work-life balance, yeah. And don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah. You may have a PhD, MSc, you want to walk around with that. It doesn't, So that's. But yes, I'm welcome. We are currently.
I think the biggest skill that I find the people out of the analysts that I've seen, like probably 100 analysts by now in Rainman in the last 12 years. And I think the most interesting guys have been the ones who kind of started with statistical skill, but they have this definite amount of, they have this native feel for marketing. Okay, so they are actually looking at logically. If it is not logically right, they will never present that model. Okay, they want it to be first. What I call the sanity test is what it passes. There are many other analysts who come with the models. So when I look at it from a market perspective, it just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so therefore, yeah. So I would think that while all of what you said, they need to know R and all of this, they need to know a little business as well. So, like they say, the best and the most hireable guy today is that ambidextrous guy, the guy who knows both stats and he knows is an MBA to boot. So anyway, we are not going to get too many of those.
You can. Absolutely right. Go visit our website. We have a lot of case studies there. And if you see some of them and you think these problems are audacious problems you want to solve, then apply.
Okay. Great.
Equal opportunity company. You'll have fun here, that's for sure.
Thank you, KK, and thank you everyone for having listened to this. So we intend to look at the feedback that will come from this, and we plan to have another meeting in a month's time. Okay, this time we will actually do a deep dive into something. Okay,
and also we can ask for new questions if they are in the comment section.
Questions is one thing. So I just wanted this session to, when I was looking at it and saying that what should the first session be about, I thought we would kind of get a feel of what people will ask. I mean, are they more interested in business issues or technical issues and so on? So now we know that we've got some kind of a mix here. And like, for example, market mix modeling is a thing. And we have done so much in market mix modeling in terms of advancing the technique and all of that. So maybe a deep dive into some of maybe even a case study in market mix modeling is something that we could kind of discuss next time. Okay, and it could, especially for those people who have not done too much of it, or they have done it but they have not done the more advanced stuff. They could possibly gain from that.
I'm
So
sure.
thank you all. So KK, you're saying something?
I was saying, ask all the questions you want in this in your comment section.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. And we hope to catch up with you. And I don't think I have a subscribe button here, so you can't press anything. Okay. Thanks and have a good time. Bye bye.
Yeah. Cheers.